Hey.
Hey.
How's it going?
Oh, I'm doing a little cardio.
Okay.
I'm working on my abs.
Oh, no. Great.
And I'm gonna look like the man.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm doing something really positive in that I'm shoveling off all the snow.
Oh, okay. Getting exercise.
So when you can back up. Bottom line is, what's going on down in Atlantis, you have to realize that the planet has changed. You know, there have been Earth movements, you know, polar shifts, you know, planets coming by, ripping things up, you know, tremendous, you know, you can go on top of a mountain, Mount Mitchell in North Carolina, that's one of the higher mountains on the East Coast. You'll find shells up there. On the top of the mountain, you'll find shells, meaning that mountain used to be under the sea. So our planet has gone through amazing changes. So what's down under 1,200, you know, 12,000 feet underneath the ice is where some advanced civilization once was. And there's a lot of intense technology down there. And they've been digging it up since, you know, the 1890s when people started going there. You know, the Nazis went there big time and found...
In Antarctica.
Yeah, in Antarctica. They were looking for the Aryan race. And the Aryan race they found were extraterrestrials. See, that's the one little thing.
You sure?
I'm not sure of anything, John.
Okay.
I'm just a scholar who tells stories. So they were looking for the Aryan race. Blue eyes, blonde hair, and really white skin. And there's an alien race, they're called the Nordics. And they're really tall, you know, somewhere above 6'2" to like, you know, 6'9".
Yeah.
And they're
I think I've seen one.
You might have. And then there are the people who are the reptiles, you know, and if you go to a guy
I think I saw one
like David Icke,
yeah.
He's all about the reptiles. And
when I first got ADT, the reason ADT? Why you want to know, ADT is the security system. When I used to live in regular, you know, houses down in regular society. Mm-hmm. You know, it's regular here too, right. But it's out in the woods.
You moved up here.
Yeah.
In the Grandin neck of the woods.
Yeah, somewhere else. I looked outside the window. I had some big windows like this, but it was, you know, not way out in these beautiful woods. It was around some houses, but it was kind of in the woods. And I saw like way down there somewhere, mm-hmm. I saw, clearly saw it.
Yeah.
Tall, skinny, completely shadowed man, looked like all black. Mm-hmm. Walk from behind one of those trees, like very tall and skinny, and walking from behind one of those trees. I clearly saw it, and at the time I was married, and my wife...
Let's go outside for a second. I need to move around a little bit.
My wife said that we had definitely locked the doors, and we found that they were left unlocked at night. And people had...
locked the doors, and then you woke up in the morning, and...
people had come into the house and changed things around and stuff. So that's when we first got ADT.
So look at that, John. It's all dirt.
That was like almost 10 years ago. That was
Now this morning this was all ice.
Yeah.
Not 10 years ago. And this is all you have to do is kind of chop the ice up a little bit, let the sun hit it, and then scoop it out of the way. Now this was like that much ice, you know?
Wow.
And now it's almost all melted.
Cool. Why do you think it gets more snow here, but doesn't on the road, most of the road?
Well, we are about 600 feet above where Inga's house is.
And it's more in the shade.
Well, there's that too. We are on the north side of the hill. Yep. So definitely we get, you know, not that much sun. But we are also elevated. We're up in the air.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So anyway, you don't want to talk about the conspiracy theories, do you?
Sure, I can.
The Atlantic.
Yeah. No, I'll talk about it. I just wanted to.
The Antarctica.
So Antarctica, right? So that obviously was where what are known as the ancient builders were, right? And so the Nazis found areas up there that had ancient technology. And that's kind of where there's this thing, if you go read Joseph P. Farrell, he's a scholar of technology. And
look how tall I am. I'm
yeah. And he, you know,
I'm a Nefru.
the
What do they call?
Nazis developed flying saucers back in like the 30s. And there were people before, like Nikola Tesla. He developed scalar technology, right? In like the 1880s. You know, he built a thing called Wardenclyffe, was wireless transmission of
It's
electricity.
getting cold.
Well,
I can do that.
take one thought. No, John, I'm doing this because I need to, because of my body. Okay, let's go back here. So you do a little bit.
I'm gonna throw some of it. All right.
Yeah, you can
So,
do it. Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah. So.
Break it up.
All right.
So anyway, see, Tom came up and made those paths, and now it's all melting out.
Yeah.
You just need to get something for the sun to radiate on.
Yeah.
So, the Nazis found, you know, underground.
This is what you believe.
No, I don't believe anything. This is what I have read from other scholars. This is what Plato talks about.
Yeah.
Meaning when you have multiple sources, first, meaning hand sources. You know?
Yeah.
Admiral Byrd went up there, and after World War II, we were, you know, victorious in Europe and Japan, right? We had this gigantic military force. And Admiral Byrd in 1947 went up to Antarctica with an aircraft carrier and a whole fleet of like submarines and battleships.
Wow.
And about 2,000 Marines. And they went to confront the Nazis who were up there. And the Nazis obliterated them.
The Nazis were up there?
Yep, the Nazis were up there.
And killed them all? Or?
Not killed them all, but gave them a real bad bloody nose, meaning chased them out of there. Meaning they were going to go up there for a year and set up a base and do all kinds of stuff. And but they were doing it in a military kind of way. And
what is it, just artifacts and stuff that are up there? Ancient artifacts?
Technology. Just like why we went into Iraq.
What kind of alien stuff, maybe?
Alien is, you know, basically human beings are aliens. When you compare us to the rest of the environment, you know, all of the animals, all the plants work in conjunction, all the relations, meaning there are no mean, you know, lions who just kill for the fun of it. They do it because they want to feed their family and you know, but they'll, you know, there's a big thing, like it's amazing. There's one big waterhole out in the savannah, right? And everybody hangs out there and, you know, gets, you know, the hippos and the, you know, zebras and the gazelles. They're all hanging out there because that's the only water. They're all kind of under trees in shade. And then the lion gets up and he's, you know, has to feed the pride. And so he gets up and he kind of walks around. He kind of just kind of walks around and he's looking at everybody and he picks out the one gazelle or zebra or whatever. They don't really go after hippos because hippos will really tear up a lion. But a gazelle or a zebra, and he picks out the one that sprained its leg or isn't doing too good, right? It's the weakest one of the crew. And then the rest of the crew of the gazelles or zebras kind of move away from that one guy, and that one guy realizes it. And he doesn't really try and run away. What he does is he runs away from his flock to protect his crew. And he offers himself up, sacrificially almost, into the circle of life. and the lion will kill that, zebra or gazelle, but won't toy with it. Will just kill it, like so it doesn't suffer. Bang. And then it takes it back to the family and everybody eats. But he doesn't do it with cruelty or with, doing something for, making money at it. We're the only entity on this planet that does it. So if you want to talk about aliens, Homo sapiens sapien is the most alien thing on this planet. So there are many theories that Homo sapiens sapien is a genetic experience that someone either dimensionally or came from someplace else. And there's a thing called the Nephilim. If you go
Nephilim?
Yeah, the Nephilim. If you go read the Bible, they talk about this, the giants, right? And there's also the fallen angels. Now that could be construed as aliens coming out of the sky. I wasn't there. I don't know. And as I keep saying, I don't believe in anything, even when I have seen amazing things in my life, and I can't say I know what they were. I can tell you the story about the amazing thing I saw.
You saw with your own eyes. When was this? When you
Also
lost track of 7 hours?
Oh, and that's happened to me. That's happened to me a number of times. But no, the most, I'll tell you a good one. So there's a movie. Again, movies are like our Bible. So the movie Men in Black, right? I used to be part of a thing called the U.S. Psychotronic Society. And what that was a group of people of many different disciplines, many like physicists, many like engineers, guys like me who were culturally dynamic and could play nice with everybody and communicate everybody's ideas to each other. And then there were ladies in muumuus and people who were psychics and what we were trying to do, what the U.S. Psychotronic Society was trying to do, there were a number of us who were really quite expertise, knowledgeable, psyched about Tesla. Tesla was a big part of our life. And there was, Al Bielek and his brother Duncan, who basically said they were part of the Eldridge, experiment of time travel, the Philadelphia experiment. And Preston Nichols, who was part of the, Montauk Project. And these are guys who were part of this thing, and I was part of, I knew them well. I experienced a lot of what they did. And I remember one time we were hanging out in Long Island, because I was living out there, and Preston lived out there, and a number of the other guys lived out there. And we were, playing around with Preston had some pretty amazing stuff. He had a scalar amplifier that he could hook just your basic record player up to, like it was an amplifier, and put it through just normal speakers. And when he put the needle on that record and put it through that scalar amplifier, not only did it sound amazing, you could feel the emotion of not only the musicians, but the people who, like, you'd play a record of Mozart, and you could feel Mozart's emotions through the music he wrote, played by the musicians in that orchestra, coming out in regular. So these were some interesting little toys that we had. And
what were they called? What was it called?
It's called scalar technology. Meaning,
and someone invented it.
Nikola Tesla.
Oh, so it was almost like a sixth sense of some sorts that you could tune into, or not just transferring an image and sound as we know today through the media, but also transferring maybe possibly smell, touch,
no. I'll
taste.
Tell you what it was. If you want, I'll explain.
Do you think that's possible to create?
Do you want me to explain it?
Almost the next level of video games and movies and.
Do you want me to tell you what it's about?
Right? Yeah.
So your little cell phone right there, right?
Yeah.
The way it runs on Hertzian waves, meaning the electronics in there, it has an XY coordinate, meaning there's amplification and modulation. And that's how that works, right?
Yeah.
X and Y. Well, scalar technology, the scalar wave is 16 dimensions. Instead of just 2, there's 16 going every different direction.
Yeah.
So when you put the needle on the record and it goes through that amplifier, your body, which is you are a spiritual being in a ugly bag of water, and that scalar technology hits every little nuance of your physical self in this, two-dimensional world and drags you into a 16-dimensional world. See, we all think we live in a linear world. You're born, you live, you die. But no, we are experiencing at this second the Big Bang. The birth of the whole universe, this right now, and the end is right now. And yet, because of how we are experiencing things, we had to put it in a linear kind of explanation. Whereas scalar, it's like radio waves. They existed. We didn't invent them. We just found them. Infrared. It existed. We just discovered it. Gamma radiation. All of these things. Microwave. All of these things we didn't invent. We just discovered them. And scalar waves, they exist. Outside of us trying to replicate them. But this little group, we played with things like that. And anyway, long story short, one day we're pulling around and all of a sudden I look out the window and this car whoop, just appears. And then a nanosecond later, these guys in black are like in the kitchen with us. And basically tell us stop fucking around with this shit. And then they were gone. And that was like the Men in Black. They didn't call themselves the men, but they were dressed in black. They were it was probably in the 80s. It was in the 80s, but they were driving like a 1968 Lincoln, black. And anyway, so that was like, what's that? Years before that, I was involved I had worked in the nuclear field out there in New Mexico. And I came back to New York and I talked to all my, social friends who were involved in social change and my artist friends and said, forget all this stuff. We have to deal with nuclear weapons because, man, that could give us a really bad day. So we started a thing called the No Nukes and the Stop Shorm campaign. And we had these big, gigantic rallies, right? And the two biggest we had were in New York City in what was known as the landfill, because right in front of the World Trade Center, they had put all this dirt from a person digging a hole, but they dredged out the Hudson, and just like they did with the whole West Side, they built this thing that was about a quarter-mile long, and they were going to build fancy apartments for the people who would work in the World Trade Center. But then the economic crash of the early 70s and the oil embargo stopped that. So that thing, or that beach, was there for a good 10 years. And the West Side Highway collapsed. And so that whole area from the Battery up to about 34th Street, nobody was in. And so we played there, right? So anyway, this lady named Lucy Lepard and a bunch of us had a thing called Art on the Beach. And because we did that and we had New York City's permission to do that, I kind of slid with these other folk having this big rally there, right? And we just kind of said, hey, it's just going to be like Art on the Beach, but 500,000 people showed up. Anyway, so we had to put a big stage because we had all kinds of people playing, Bono and you name it, all the people who were socially, politically correct, they kind of, the Boss, you name it, they all kind of came and played. And me and a group, we kind of put the stage together and got the lighting together and the sound together. And for a month, we tried to do that, but it rained and rained and rained, and trying to put a multi-ton stage on top of sand while it's raining is pretty tough. So, but we did it, and the more we, it was a real, we're gonna succeed at this. Anyway, so this is right by the Battery, right? And where the Battery is, there is Battery Park. And in Battery Park, there's this metal building that is like a big fan duct for the tunnel that goes from Manhattan to Brooklyn, right? And in the movie Men in Black, that was how, in reality, they built that tunnel and did all that excavating so they could build the, the secret base for the Men in Black there. So there we were, not a block or two from that building and the battery, and we're over here in the landfill, and we're working real hard for a whole month to build this stage, and we finally do it, and we get it all done, everything works, and it was like, and it's been raining all month, and we finish like at 4 in the morning, and the concert is going to start at noon, and everything's done, and we're like totally exhausted, and we're sitting there, and we're like, and the sun is starting to rise, and we feel, boy, we really accomplished something. And then all of a sudden, everything starts vibrating, right? I mean, everything. The stage, everything, the sand is vibrating, and we're about, I don't know, 20, our stage is gigantic, it's like, I don't know, 100 feet wide and about 60 foot deep, and it's about 20 feet above where the audience is going to be, and everything's vibrating, and I look down, and at the sand is vibrating to the point where all the water is sinking out of the sand. So it's no longer, wet sand. It's like kind of drying out. And then the weirdest thing, patterns. The vibrations started making patterns, like geometric patterns in the sand. And we're like, whoa. And we had just smoked a few doobies, and we were going, whoa, what's in that doobie? And we're just looking at this. And then all of a sudden, about, I don't know, 100 yards in front of us, it really starts vibrating, and the sand separates, and a metal box comes up. And there's not a door or anything. It's like there are no seams or anything. And we're 100 yards from it, and we're going, and the sun is coming up, and the box is like first gray, and then pink, and then the sun is shining off it, and we're like, whoa. And then one whole side of the box kind of disappears. And there are 4 to 6 folk in there who are pretty tall, blonde hair, blue eyes, and they're all wearing like aluminum suits, but there are no creases or crinkles or I mean, it's like almost like their skin. You couldn't, it wasn't like, clothes I was wearing, let's say that. And they look at us, and we're like, and they don't go like this, but they kind of smile at us and shake their heads. And then the wall appears, and it vibrates, and it goes away, and all the geometric symbols that were in the sand vibrate away, and what had happened was that whole half a mile by 2 football fields where the landfill was no longer wet. Meaning if it stayed as wet as it was when we finished, that big crowd that we were expecting was going to have to go through mud.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. Anyway, so there was about, 12 to 20 of us who were in my crew that did all of this. And we were like, whoa. So, that was our job. We moved like, 100 porta-johns in there. We built the stage. We got the electricity, got the sound, got the lights, got everything ready. Got the VIP section and the place where the cars, we did all of that. And once the crowd showed up, once the talent showed up, we weren't going to run it. We were like, we all had all-in passes. We could just, take it.
You weren't going to do it? But the show still went on?
Oh, the show went on. It was a great success, blah, blah, blah. But I'm back in the VIP, talking to Bono and all those things. And my wife is clicking away, and she's in seventh heaven, taking pictures of all this. And all of a sudden, I start hearing her giggle. And I turn around, and she is standing. Her face is in the crotch of a guy who's about 7'2". Now,
whoa.
Those guys in the aluminum suits were a good 100 yards from us. But I could tell that this guy was not maybe that guy, but he looked just like those guys.
Whoa.
Blonde hair, blue eyes, really tall. And instead of being an aluminum suit, He was wearing a child's cowboy outfit. You know what? That cowboy outfit you get when you're 5. It's got cap guns and you know the cowboy hat you have that you play as old Jimmy. He's wearing that kind of outfit.
But was he with your wife?
No. He was just standing there, and she bumped into, she was taking a picture. She turned around and bang, right into his crotch, and she went like this.
Okay, good.
And she started giggling.
It wasn't some horrible thing.
No.
Okay.
It was in this big crowd of.
Okay, but those people were nice.
It was like 1 in the afternoon. It was sunny. The big crowd was there. It was all, and here's this guy in a cowboy outfit, and no one seemed to think he was strange or even noticed him. But he was like 7'2", really long blonde hair, piercing blue eyes, and white skin like white, and no hair.
Like Icelandic.
Nordic is what they call it.
I have a friend, Bjarni, who's from Iceland, and some other people I know from Iceland.
7'2"?
Gosh, his skin looks so white sometimes. I think he's one of the only people I've ever met that's pure white,
right.
As they say, pure white.
He
doesn't even have 0.3%
right. So
African
they
like most
Nordic.
white
and that's
people.
because they're way up there in the north and they get no sun. But anyway, so there this guy is in this crowd, and I kind of went over to him, and he says, "Al, you've done a great job." I don't know this guy from a hole in the ground, and yet he knows me. And we start talking about humanity and what's going to happen. And I'm just like this. And no one is paying attention to this conversation. He's talking about what's going to happen in the next, 100 years with humanity.
What did he say?
Well, it was kind of like Fatima. You know about Fatima?
No.
It's when these 3 little Italian kids or Spanish kids, I'm not quite sure where it happened, but either in Spain or Italy, and the Virgin Mary came down to visit them, right? And they kept, where did you go? Oh, the Virgin Mary was up there. They were like taking care of the sheep. And the more they talked about...
A miracle, as they call it.
Yeah, and the priests saw you shouldn't be talking like that. That's not good. Anyway, then... they said, well, come up to the hill and see it. Anyway, so the priest came up there, and a bunch of the mayor came up there, and bingo, the Virgin Mary shows up. And they were like, whoa. And so the next time, there were like maybe a few hundred people. The Virgin Mary shows up. Whoa. And then those 100 people tell everybody, the next time, there's 20, 30, 50,000 people up on that hill, and the Virgin Mary shows up. And the sun comes out of the sky and comes down, and everyone goes, ah, and then it goes away. And at that time, the Virgin Mary tells the 3 children 3 things that's going to happen in the future, right? And the 2, one was about World War II, one was about the Pope getting shot, and the third one, the church won't tell anyone. It's supposed to have been told to the public in 1961, but the church won't let it go, right? And the last remaining little girl of that crew who became a nun, before she died, she wrote a biography about everything, and she did say what it was, right? And then it got published, secretly, and the Catholic Church said, "Oh, that's not what it is. Somebody made that up." And in that thing it talks about, Planet X showing up and, rocking and rolling the planet, And that's kind of what we're experiencing as, global warming and weather changes, we're being told that it's our car and our carbon footprint, and in reality, it's this other thing coming into our solar system. Now, if the powers that be ever told the public,
what do you mean a thing coming in? A planet?
A planet twice the size of Jupiter, made out of iron.
Wow.
And it's zooming towards us, and it has a 30,000-year elliptical orbit. And, scientists and astronomers have said, ooh, there's something out there, because they can see the effect of this, because it's so far out at this moment, and it has nothing that reflects sunlight, meaning it's not covered in water, it doesn't have snow on it, it's dark, and it's heading towards us. And if you read the Bible, you could see the thing that caused the great flood was a thing that big coming through around us and causing a gravitational pull. The moon causes tides, and that's this big. Just think of something this big coming that close to us, and it all made out of iron. Ooh, it could make our planet rock and roll. So there are many things.
Is that why some people now are going to that other planet? Is it either Jupiter? It's not Jupiter. It's Mars. Yeah, Mars.
And basically the Nazis got on the moon in the 30s, and they went to Mars in the 40s, and have been. And when they went to the South Pole, and they found all this technology which allowed them to build really super sophisticated things. And that's why they had jet planes and the V2 rocket and V1, like they came out of nowhere, and why they had computers and they had really advanced technology. And the English had their own aliens. They were the reptiles. And the Americans had their own aliens, and they were the grays. Now, I'm not saying any of this is true. At best, from my understanding, it is a urban legend. But
yeah,
I mean, that's what the Bible is. Urban
Some
legend.
of it most likely is.
There's a germ of truth in there, and that's YouTube audience. You're the folk who have to start digging around. I'm just telling you stories. I'm the griot. I'm not saying any of this is real. I'm not saying you should trust or believe anything I say.
What was it? What was it that tall, blonde guy with the long hair that came up to you and approached you and had that conversation and predicted almost prophetic, or it was normal for someone like him, whatever it was? What did he say?
He didn't tell me things that were going to happen to the earth or the people of earth. What he talked about was what I needed to do. Me.
Okay.
The path I needed to follow. And the fact that I would experience this, experience that, and those experiences would be like guideposts, right? And what was truly interesting was the lady who I told a story earlier about the crone in Ireland. She also, when I was at her farm in the month or so that I was there, and we would be, before I drank the third part of tea, and when she was saying, you could stay here, you could study with me, you could live here, this would be nice for you, right? And she was trying to say that. And when I drank the third pot of tea, she basically said, no, not going to happen. You're still my student. I still love you. You're a great guy. Come and visit. But you've chosen a path. And that's when she took out the runes, and she took out the tarot cards, or her cards, not so much tarot cards, but her cards. And she's, in the last week or so that I was at, she gave me a reading, and she called it a deep reading. And so she said, I'm going to tell you stuff, and it'll get in your head, and once you leave here, it'll kind of get foggy until that thing happens to you in the future, and you'll go, wow, she said that, and here it is happening, right? So one of the things she said was, okay, you're going to go back to Trinity, and you're going to, spend a week or two, taking care of whatever business, so you can go back to New York, and everyone will say, yep, you did that, and yes, he fulfilled the reasons why he came here, and you'll move forward. And she goes, but when you're in Dublin, you will take one day a walk in part of the old town near where the brewery is, and you'll find you'll turn down an alley, and that alley will, people will be wearing clothes that aren't like, representative of the clothes everyone else is wearing. It'll be like 19th century clothes or older. And you'll walk down that alley and you will see, the bakers and the candlestick maker and all of these kind of people. And you will realize that this alley isn't in the time of, 1969. This is 1869 or 1769, but not 1969. And so, and I didn't look for it. One day I was, finished, I was looking for a place to have breakfast, really. I'm always looking for a place for breakfast. And I went down this alley, and it just got more interesting and more interesting the deeper I went in. And then I noticed these people, whoa, this is what the crone had said. So instead of feeling scared, I said, okay, I'm going to go deep. Because she said I would go into a tea house. And the tea house, the lady would read my tea leaves and give me really nice scones. And she would have 3 pots of tea, just like the crone had.
Wow.
And she would let me drink each 3, I'd have 3 cups, right? The first cup was the one where you feel energized. The second one was when you really understood stuff. And the third one was when you really were teleported into other dimensional things. And each time she read, she would pour the tea from the pot, and I would, drink that tea. And she would give me, first I had a scone that was really great. And then I had a cream kind of pastry. And then the third one was a thing called ambrosia.
Wow.
And ambrosia was put along with that third pot of tea and that ambrosia, I was on another planet. And each cup of tea that I drank, she would read the tea leaves. And so that
Who's she?
The lady who ran the tea house
In the
alley of
period piece.
Yes.
Period piece, whatever you call it in real life.
Another time, right?
Okay.
And she was really from another time. And really more, once I went through the threshold of that tea house, because I sort of said tea house, and I remember the crone saying, you're going to find a place in Dublin that's going to be really, and it'll be a tea house. When you see the tea house, go in there. Don't worry about it. Go in there. And the lady will tell you things. Anyway, so that woman, and she was quite young, really young, like no more than 19. And it wasn't like the crone who looked like she was 190 and at times looked like 19. This girl was 19. Yet she had wisdom and experience and knowledge way past the age of 19.
Okay.
So she told me about a number of things that were going to happen in my life.
Wow.
And with the first cup of tea and the first reading of those tea leaves, it backed up what the crone had said to me earlier. And then the second cup said things that were more, interesting, and it dealt with more an action-oriented thing in my life. And then the third one was like time, really put me in a place where I experienced the non-linear time, and kind of changed my mind. So when I started hanging out with indigenous people, like the Aborigines of Australia and the Hopi and African tribes and South American tribes, I was able to experience on their plane and not have to look at it as a white guy, right? And so that's what that experience in Dublin, before I went back to New York, did. And it felt like it took all day, but after I finished that and I went out and I walked through time again, out to where it was 1969, it was like, I kind of went into that alley maybe around 10 in the morning, and when I came out, even though I felt it was like all day, it was still 10 a.m. I thought hours and hours and hours had passed, maybe even the next day, and yet it was almost the same time, when I went back. So
Wow.
that's kind of the information. And so what was very interesting, the crone told me that I would have this experience, and that I would be given a bunch of knowledge. But when I went back to New York, I would have a fuzzy memory of it, but I wouldn't have a solid memory, except when the experience would occur. So years later, 69 now, this is 1977, before we went to Europe, that the no nukes things were going on, and I met this guy who was 7'2" Nordic.
Yeah.
That experience was one of the things that the lady in the tea room told me about. And meaning I totally forgot about it until I heard my wife giggle, and bingo, when I saw this guy there and nobody else were like really surprised, it was like, wow, this is something that woman in Dublin told me. And I went over there, and everything that guy told me was exactly what the lady in the tea house told me, right?
Wow.
And all it did was not convince, but buttress that knowledge. And again, kind of just changed my brain and my vibration enough, because about 6 months later, we ended up heading for Australia. And, we were only going to spend 6 months there, but we spent 3 years there. And we lived with an Aboriginal. We did all kinds of things that we didn't expect we were going to do, but we did. And both her meeting and the guy gave me I handed him, because I'm a big firm believer of business cards, I handed him one of my business cards, and he looked at it and smiled, and he handed me his business card, right? When he handed me his business card, I held it in my hand, and it was not a card. All it was air with information on it, right? And it was in a language I had no idea what the heck that was. And it sure wasn't any language, and I had seen a lot of languages, and even ancient ones, and I was looking at it, and the only thing that I could read, and it said, name, Dirk Dorge, like a porno star.
Dirk Dorge?
Dirk Dorge. And I looked at him, he goes, yep, my name is Dirk Dorge. He goes, you'll see me again. And,
Really? Did you ever see him yet?
No, but I met other people who had met him. And when we'd talk and got to know each other, and we would start telling stories, they would go, you met Dirk? Oh, I met Dirk, and we
Whoa.
Yes.
You think he's somebody on Earth whose parents just have billions of dollars, and he was like some young...
Oh, no, this guy was because...
as they say, the blonde Adonis, but maybe they were so rich...
No. He was a dimensional character, because... when I held that thing, and it said, name Dirk Dorge, and I looked up, and he goes, yep, my name's Dirk Dorge, we'll meet again. I looked back at the card, and the letters fell, kind of went into the dust. And Donna turned around to me, and she goes, I'm really tired. Is there a place I can lie down and go to? And this is the middle of a gigantic concert and lots of noise. I said, yeah, honey, let's there's my little tent over there. I had myself a tent because I had spent a whole month there. I had my own place, so we went over to my little place. Anyway, when she said that to me, I looked up to where Dirk Dorge had been. He was gone. Now this guy is 7'2", meaning if he was walking away, you would see him. But in a matter of seconds, from the time I looked and the letters kind of disappeared, and my wife came over to me and go, I'm really tired, I don't know why. And I kind of looked, and Dirk was gone. So anyway, that's what it is, folks. And again, do not believe anything I tell you.
Yeah. But do you remember any of the prophetic things that he told you about your life?
When they occur, yes. Yep. Mm-hmm. But I don't remember them now. They're not in there. But when they happen, I go, yeah, wow, that's what she said. Oh, whoa, that's what Dirk said.
Who was more helpful? The crone?
All three were helpful.
Which three? There were three. The lady that...
The crone, the
period piece tea house.
And Dirk.
Dirk. When you say Dirk, you mean
the
he was more spiritual?
No,
or
they all had information for me on different kind of ways, and they've
But
all.
why when you're pointing, why do you have the crone, this lady, and this guy right here?
Oh, just because.
Was he more like a godly
No,
or?
no. They were all just what they were. No, they weren't gods. No, because nothing's on a straight plane. Nothing was. They were all different. They all hold different aspects. They all gave me perspectives. All the perspectives were different, and they gave the only thing common about the information that I received from these three people is that I cannot bring it back crystal clear in my mind. It's just kind of foggy until it occurs. When it occurs, it's like, oh yeah, wow, it becomes crystal clear.
A deja vu?
No, way more crystal clear than a deja vu. It's like, whoa. Deja vus are a feeling, but it's not crystal clear. It's just, oh, what is that? This is like, whoa.
Wow, that's amazing.
And once they happen, they, are still crystal clear. I can bring those things back, but they are extraordinarily personal. So I wouldn't really bring them up in a story because they're very personal.
You mean, was it things that you were supposed to act like in order to follow a spiritual path
pretty
of
much.
good?
Right. But it wasn't, not so much that I was following it. They were more like landmarks or points where I go, oh, yeah, that's what happened. You know what I mean? I wasn't following a path. They were just things that gave me, oh, yeah, a remembrance of information. But no, they weren't like giving me instructions.
No.
It was more like, when this happens,
No.
you will feel, you'll understand, right now, the kind of information we're giving you, you can't put into context. But when you come up to this landmark of experience, you will be able to put things into context in a way that you wouldn't be able to, because you'll remember that, this person, that person, and this person told you about this, that, and the other thing. So that's what it is. Now the thing is, everybody has these experiences, but most people ignore them. Most people think they were just daydreaming. Most people think, oh, that's nothing. And then they forget about it. They don't really put it contextually into who and what they are. Ergo, they can be manipulated by the material world. Oh. How's our driveway going?
Pretty good.
Oh, yeah. There's a little bit more we can chop up. And I need to walk.
Yeah, you've been exercising.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the whole thing of exercise. You do a little bit, you rest. You do a little bit, you rest. And it's a beautiful day.
Yeah. So.
See, this whole thing was one chunk of ice. And all I did was what I'm going to do to this chunk of ice. All I did was this. Break it up.
Yeah. So.
It's already kind of melting because I kind of chopped it up a little.
Yeah.
So you could park your car there now. And
you're right.
You'd never skid, right?
Yeah.
This might be a nice thing to do this evening because it's going to get cold and this will get icy up, and this way it'll be right in a nice place.
Yeah.
And then if you want to leave.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Prophetic. This is what I made.
It's amazing.
I have cabbage that I made with onions.
I have some here that
and
really good
bananas.
soup. Yeah.
And then I had this other thing of beans and prunes and onions and celery and garlic, and I made it hot, so it was like a hot, sweet and sour kind of meal, and it's really quite amazing.
It's amazing.
Don't you think?
Yeah, it was getting cold in here, and that was tired of filming. But
Heated you right up.
here's the thing I want to make sure.
Right?
You definitely weren't. You just told me you were.
John,
Yeah.
listen. John wants to know whether I was doing psychotropic acid when I was building a stage for 500,000 people to watch. No, that was like whenever you do something, when you're involved in
Creating
an event,
something, working
when
hard.
you ever involved in an event, you have to be responsible. You have to be the grown-up in the room. So no, I was not doing anything that was altering my perception because I had the health and safety of
Good.
500,000 people in my hands. So no, I was not doing acid.
Yeah.
I was not doing any psychotropic drug.
Yeah.
I was just doing my job. And I experienced Dirk Dorsch, 7.2 feet high, talking to my wife, and he was dressed as a cowboy, as you would be dressed if you were 5 years old.
Could you see his stomach? Was he showing off his
No, but
body?
I saw, again, I will repeat.
Was he? He wasn't like a big teen or something, or 20
he
something.
was
Cool.
dressed as
Okay.
a 5-year-old in a cowboy outfit.
How old did he look?
He was 7 feet 2 inches tall. I didn't measure him with a tape measure, but he was tall, that much taller than the tallest person in the crowd. And
Could you maybe have been one of those historic giants that they said existed on Earth?
No. He was whiter than white. He had piercing blue eyes. He had long, blondish white hair. He fits what is described within the texts of ufology as a Nordic. So that was the only guy I ever met. I'm not part of the ufology religion. I've been around back in the day when I was part of the U.S. Psychotronic Society and the Theological Society and a bunch of other scholarly societies studying ancient things.
Yeah.
Basically, we put on conferences, right?
Yeah, no.
And now today there are these conferences with George Norrie and Linda Moulton Howe and David, what's his name, and where they have crowds of thousands and they have them in big auditoriums and.
And you've given speeches at
those
Virginia
things.
Tech, at various universities,
Yes. Well, I was, a
Roanoke
teacher.
College,
Right, and
all sorts of ones.
yes, but those were more ad hoc. These conferences were, organized and put on. But I was doing it back in the day when we were the first people doing that, at least within the context of that discipline. And now they've become a enterprise, a business, a thing. We were doing it because...
Mantra.
So, anyway, this is good stuff, boy. I'm gonna impress myself.
I didn't mean to
Besmirch
interrupt
my
you when you were finally doing it. But some of those people would say, he's some hippie on acid. He didn't see it. So I just thought, now that it's clarified, let's just eat the food. Okay,
right.
Bye. Sorry. Okay. Wow, look at that bread.
Oh, baby.
Gosh. Some steam was coming off and it looked amazing when he first handed it to me. With the soup.
Tastes good, too.